From the Wayne County Courthouse in Goldsboro, North Carolina, Wayne Goldsboro Television brings you the meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. The meeting begins shortly with an agenda briefing, then the regular meeting will begin soon after. Please stand by for the Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting.
They've approved it. It's just taken a while to get all of the legal documents ready. So Borden's recommending that they're in order now. So we want you to approve it.
It's just the state takes longer than we do.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the land.
College.
This is the college. That was Maxwell something.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking that their state board took longer to approve it.
That's
what I was talking about.
That's part of the,
in January.
yeah, that's part of the problem is we're having to deal with the state, then we have to deal with the state community college system, and sometimes they're not on the same page.
But I've got the deeds and the agreement here to sign if y'all adopt it.
Okay.
And you can see from the diagram, this is the easement going down their parking lot, which gets the piping down from the Ag Center and also where the city's hospital, the hotel will be. Then it crosses the back road and then comes into this, and then this is the pond area here.
And this will take care of all the future needs of the college and possible hotel up there as well.
That's right.
Is that correct?
And gives us an area back there for a storage building for Kevin.
So if, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So if I can understand this, the county of Wayne evidently purchased this property at some point, deeded it over to the community college, and then we wanted the community college to deed it back to the county. But for some reason, the state felt like that would needed a great deal of scrutiny. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just a rule that the state, college cannot convey property that the state hadn't approved of. And I think you gave them the money and they bought it as opposed to you buying it.
Oh, okay.
But
Whatever. We got it done.
That's all that matters. And number two is the motion to adopt resolution 2017-3. It's $27,000 grant, NCDOT. This is airport related, isn't it?
This is airport money. The $27,000 grant this is a 90-10 grant, 90% Fed, 10% local. And this is to prepare for possible acquisition of some land. This really does the surveying and appraisal and things like that.
Okay.
So you'll have to go back to them to get the money to actually purchase it.
Number three is a motion to approve equipment purchase for Dudley Fire Department.
Yeah, on that one, I've given you the letters from them. They have, let me get to that, page 25.
It's on the board.
Okay. They're wanting to purchase two new trucks. One would be a tanker, and then they currently use a 1993 Pierce pumper tanker instead of a tanker truck. So they plan to sell that unit when the new one's purchased, and they have the money on hand to pay for that truck. Then they want to borrow money over 15 years at 2.85%, not more than $500,000, which would buy the pumper. And so what they're doing there then is they would then take their frontline pumper out and replace it. And when they sell it, then they would use that money to pay down some of this debt. So we've checked the requirements of the agreements we have with them. Your fire contract states that the debt service payments cannot exceed 50% of the revenue they receive from the county's fire tax and the maintenance of 3 months of operating funds, and they would still do that. So they meet the criteria for it.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
And this was a motion to authorize the execution of construction agreement for Middle Lane School with the Board of Education.
This is the agreement that you worked out with the schools way back, I guess, in late spring about the construction of the school. It's pretty much similar to what we had on the Grantham and Spring Creek middle schools, where they deed you the property. you make them your agent for building the school, because since you're the owner of the property, then, and the advantage of all this is then the county can apply for reimbursement on the sales tax, and for whatever reason, under state law, boards of education cannot. So it puts us in position to get all of that done. And in the meantime, you would lease the school to them over the 20-year term of the bond, and then once the bonds are paid off, it would go back to the school. The reason for that is we have to have the school as collateral on the loan. So, is there anything?
That's, I want to make sure you understand that will help you with the interest rate. Putting that up.
So basically, just like we did on the two middle schools.
I wonder if anybody's ever foreclosed on a school before. I doubt,
Not
but
in
anyway.
North Carolina.
I don't think the LGC would let you do that.
All right. Is Kendall going to be here to give us an update on the sewer meter?
Yes, and I'll do some of it as well, but yeah, so I thought if y'all don't mind, we'll just wait on that.
Okay. And then at 6, we'll discuss and vote on the schematic design for the 911 center.
Right, and on page 44, this is an amended plan from what Mr. Stumbo brought in at the last meeting. We had some discussion while he was here, and then we had this plan brought in, and he will also be bringing a slight adjustment to this. It'll have the same number of rooms and everything, but he's got them grouped a little bit differently than what we're showing here. So he'll be here at the 9 o'clock meeting to go over that with you.
Okay. All right, consent agenda, and we've got a number of budget amendments. Let's talk about those.
Number 233 is from the Health Department. They have received some extra funding from the Family Planning Grant, and we're just allocating for that $2,027. Number 235 is from the Sheriff's Department. This is appropriating the funds where we have billed the city of Goldsboro for the REACT grant for $15,355.61. Number 236 is for the detention center. This is additional funds needed for the outsourcing of inmates until the new detention center opens for $165,000. Number 239 is to do two things here. It is to realign the budget where we miscategorized the FEMA funds. We put it under Irene, and it should have been placed under Matthew. And then the second part of that is the $123,695 is to appropriate for funds received from insurance. Number 240 is for social services. They have received additional funding in the Low-Income Energy Assistance Program for $320,624. So that's just to appropriate for that fund and authorization. Number 241 is for our 4-H grant. What this is the 21st Century grant. It runs on an odd calendar. It begins in October. So the $59,000 was unspent for last year. So we needed to unappropriate that. Number 244 is for the Health Department for additional funds from Medicaid for $40,000 to assist in vaccinations. Number 245 is also from the Health Department. This budget amendment was needed to appropriate additional funds for the Health Department for the Women and Children's Health Branch in the Maternal Health Program, $5,167. Number 246 is basically an accounting entry. where we need to move out the purchase of 5 striker chairs. Excuse me, striker chairs. They were not considered capital outlay because they are below our $5,000 threshold each, so we're just moving those out to a non-capital line item. Number 248 is to appropriate funds for Ellery Fire Department for the facility rent. This is because we're using this location since our Seven Springs location is not able to be used. Number 250 is for the jail. We're having to reappropriate funds that were left over at year-end last year that we have not used for $14,915.53 that has to stay with in the SCAP grant to be used for a specific purpose. Number 254 for DSS is additional funds needed for 4E program of $187,000. Number 255 to transfer funds. This is the IT's budget to transfer funds out of capital outlay to capital outlay vehicles from equipment to purchase a transit van.
While we're here on that one, Mr. Wood, the van, the equipment, what they're using now, what's the
Well,
situation?
they've got a used vehicle now that has been through several departments, so it's pretty much reached its useful life. But we started having mechanical problems, and we just felt like this makes more sense than trying to put more money into that.
Okay, any comments? Okay, thanks.
Number 256 is another budget for our hurricane. It's for the FEMA line items. These were some additional expenses that we incurred in December and in January that we had not paid out earlier. So it's just to appropriate those funds, anticipating reimbursement from FEMA. $8,595.05. And finally, our last one is number 257 for inspections. It's to anticipate and appropriate funds for repair to a vehicle for insurance recoveries of $1,984.64.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back to that 255 just a minute. Do we not have a vehicle that's in the fleet somewhere that they could make out with until budget time, or?
Well, not really. I just felt like, and since they could go ahead with the money within their budget, we're not using fund balance, so it'd work out the same as if you put it in next year.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I want to ask a question about the FEMA, and I see it's 2 budget items in here. I think maybe there was some information in the newspaper about it, and so that caused a couple of my constituents to call me and asked about what did I know about the FEMA funds, and was it designed to come in to help folk that, or do something for people that may not have gotten earlier help, and as I read things about FEMA, it suggested although a person may have had some insurance, if the insurance didn't cover it, FEMA might help. And one specific situation had to do with the church at Sleepy Creek Road and Old Mount Olive Highway. They had some discussions and with the railroad and with transportation about the pond is right there next to the church and how it runs across the road. And so the question became, can those funds be used to do any investigation through that area? Because I think somewhere in the greater Dudley area, there is a water transfer problem. I'll only use that term because no one knows exactly what it is right now, but the church had some problem with water seepage, and then a recurring problem over on Lincoln Drive, of which I have been in, when I say involved with, I have seen it over the last 18 months. The water simply seeps out of, Lincoln Drive has a deep incline, and the water just simply seeps out of the ground, runs along the side of in the ditches, and create something of a potential mosquito hazard in the summertime anyway. Cause it'll puddle. I mean, there's a live stream coming down the ditches. And so that was a broader question, Mel. Is there something, what can those dollars be used for? That's just sort of an opening question. I don't know exactly what question I'm asking you, but.
Right. Well, there's two different things to look at. What you're talking about is IA, or individual assistance, which is between nonprofits and individuals with FEMA. So they would work with FEMA independently from the county government, which is public assistance, or PA. There are some funds and monies being allocated to do some of these studies, for river studies, to see what we need to do. And that could be an item that we might be able to look at as well. Mr. Wood sent me some information on some legislation that's coming down that we're going to be taking a look at. Nothing guaranteed, but it is something that we are going to be able to look at and do some river studies and some studies, what you just heard.
And that might fit under that category where river studies, stream studies, water running studies, you know, a trickle of water that looks minor accumulated over time becomes a pond. And so that's, but let's keep in mind the Dudley area. I'll pass along to my colleague that it may be something, again, individually they need to contact FEMA about, but I'll also give him your telephone number so he can, all right?
Yes, sir.
Didn't we have that same problem doing Florida? I remember that discussion coming up back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But they've, what we looked at, they are trying to get some legislation for grants to try to look at some river studies to see what we need to do. We do know there's an issue. There's been an issue since Floyd. So I think they're trying to address it and allocate the monies for that.
Yeah, and some of that is what to do about whether we're going to dredge some of these rivers, clean up some of the banks, you know, from debris and stuff like that, and probably get some logs and trees and things out of the river themselves. So that's part of it, and that needs to be done so that, you know, they've got more carrying capacity instead of having blockages. And we know we got some sandbars and things like that that have built up during there that they, you know, those need to be addressed as well.
We are hoping they will include the tributaries on these as well, is what we're hoping.
Thank you.
So one of the issues there, just so you know about it, is, you know, the rivers clearly are waters of the state of North Carolina. When you start getting into the tributaries, a lot of these end up being really on private property. So there becomes an issue of who should pay for that. You know, we've had some of that with some folks here who thought that money should be spent on restructuring their ditches. But that's not the case under state law as I understand it. So that's where you're going to get into. It's going to be a case-by-case determination where even if money's available, whether the state will do it or not. So that's why we're kind of hedging the answer. We don't really know at this point, but the money is starting to become available for some of that.
Thank you, sir, because I think maybe you really sort of hit it in the latter part of your comment. These problems being on private property, and unless there's some public way to do it, person doesn't. Number one, I think there's a blue line ditch right. Well, no, it's a state ditch right next to a piece of property I have,
Yeah.
and I don't have the kind of equipment that can do it right. So periodically, I'm down there with my pole saw, cutting bushes along the bank so that people can see traffic that's coming.
Right.
So you see, the average citizen doesn't have the wherewith to do that kind of thing. And so if the county or the municipalities or some entity doesn't do it, clearly private citizens don't have the machinery or the dollars to do that.
Well, if it's on the road right of way, then that would be a DOT question there. They might come along and recut the ditch, something like that. But if it's not on one of their roadways, they're not going to do it. And where we get the problem is not typically ditches running along the road because they can do that.
Right.
It's where you have a ditch that crosses. And so after it leaves DOT right of way, then it's private property.
You just described it almost
Yeah.
perfect because, and I say this out loud, so if there's some brilliant person out there that's listening, just what you just described, here a car pulls up to the street waiting to go out. Yes, sir. The problem is beyond the state ditch perfectly, but the person sitting there in that car still can't get safe out in the road unless I go down there and cut the bushes back. And so I don't own the ditch. I don't know who owns that ditch, but
DOT would typically own the ditch.
It's in the right of way.
Well, going parallel with the road.
I know we're parallel with the road, but the
Now,
money.
if it's perpendicular,
Yeah.
the property owner owns it, right?
The only time the DOT would do anything there is if that ditch is draining the ditches along the side of the road. Water's going back off the road, you can get DOT to do something. Otherwise, it's
And we
the
just say
property
you're
owner.
killing time right
The
now.
county
We
does
just killing
not
time right now.
do anything about ditches, just like the county doesn't do anything
Find out
about
that
roads.
most of us
We're not in either
And-
the ditch or the road business.
All right.
Thank you.
Enough statement, Bill.
I just have one short question. Is in the tributaries, for example, does the Army Corps of Engineers have anything to do with this at all?
If it flows into the Atlantic Ocean, they have something to do with it.
Okay.
Wait a minute, ask your question again, Mayor, because I don't
What
hear it.
does the Army Corps of Engineers have anything to do with our streams and tributaries this far inland?
Yeah, if it's determined a blue line stream. You know, when the Corps started out, it was supposed to be navigable waters of the United States.
Yeah.
Now, you know, typical bureaucratic overreach, they're into everything. So if it's a blue line stream, you can have problems. And you guys can remember they're over wetlands determinations.
Yeah, the reason I ask you that, I guess it's probably been 30 years ago, maybe a little less, that Mahana Swamp that runs through our property was completely cleaned out from debris and logs and so forth. So, you know, I don't know who did it. I don't know who was involved or where the funds came from.
Right.
But, you know, these small swamps and streams have a big impact on the total flow of water
Right.
to the larger rivers.
Well, the circumstances today are exactly as Mr. Parker described them, is if it's not on the DOT right-of-way, then it's a private matter.
Yeah.
Unless it's the main river channel, you know, like the Neuse.
Right.
But that's what we're trying to get them to clean out, is things like that. And then the main tributaries coming from that. But they're not gonna do every secondary or tertiary tributary. Because tributaries look like the, you know, the branches of a tree. So you might get the main trunk, but you're not gonna get all the small stuff. They couldn't afford to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Just one quick observation. Mr. Mayo said about 30 years ago, that was probably under the Jim Hunt administration, one of the last great Democrat governors.
That explains where the Medicaid fund out of my pocket. Let's move on, please. The next thing is the Wayne County Development Alliance. We need to remove restrictions on 38 acres.
Yeah, and Crystal is here if you want her to go ahead and go over that, or we can just wait till the 9 o'clock meeting.
But she'd like to come on and get it done so she can go back to work, or?
Yeah, we could go ahead. Do you mind getting her in? Angel?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could you check out Commissioner Doherty over there? He's mighty quiet this morning. I don't know if there's anything
He's waiting
wrong
for
with that.
9 o'clock.
This is my new persona.
He might be being quiet, but I can still see the wheels are turning.
He's been down here getting tweets from Washington DC.
Oh, boy.
Chris, we thought you could come on and talk to us so you can go back to work. Unless you just want to come back later.
No, that's fine.
So what we're looking at as far as covenants and restrictions for Park East Industrial Park located on Highway 70 is there is 38 acres there that we are going to be marketing as commercial property. We feel like although there are covenants and restrictions in place there, we've already have a contract for 4 acres to be sold, which really does not, it's an additional acreage that an existing company just outside the property lines of the park is purchasing. Their existing business is not part of the park or the covenants. Therefore, we're asking that the covenants be removed from the 4 acres that they're interested in purchasing. We'd like to remove the covenants from the 38 acres total that's going to be marketed as commercial property in order for us to be able to market that and select and work with any company that may be interested in purchasing that property without having to go through the county once again. That'll give WCDA the opportunity to work with them in negotiations in their deed. So what we're doing is asking for the 38 acres that was deeded over to WCDA, have the covenants and restrictions removed from that 38 acres, and what would take place in order to do that is to convey it back over to the county, remove those restrictions, and then convey it back to WCDA.
And the reason it's being done that way is the easiest way to do it. County is one of the original owners, and the restrictions say that the original owners can remove the restrictions after a certain number of years which have expired. So what you'll end up doing is having the WCDA, assuming they approve it Thursday, convey the property to the county. The county will then record in the register of deeds the fact that that 38 acres is being taken out of the restrictions, and then immediately convey it back to WCDA. So you'll have deed agreement, deed recorded right after each one.
And y'all remember, oh, excuse me. And you recall that the reason we did the 38 acres over to them is without that, you'd have to go through this upset bid process if somebody made an offer on it. By putting it in WCDA's hands, they don't have to do that process like the county does. So that's, just to refresh your memory, that's why we deeded the 38 acres over to them in the first place.
This will also eliminate us having to go through this process each time we sell some acreage out there at the park.
Good. Questions? Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. We're going to have Jason Hill will be here from the Sheriff's Department, talk about the DWI Task Force renewal.
Yeah, we already do this. You have to renew it each year, but we committed to this last year, so we'll have that. And we got several presentations. Paula Edwards will be here to talk about the upcoming senior games. And then we'll have a presentation by Andrew Jernigan, president of the Downtown Goldsboro Development Corporation. He wants to talk with y'all about that organization and what they're doing downtown. Then we'll have a presentation by Ashlyn Glather, who's the Goldsboro Wayne County Travel and Tourism Director, to talk about the marketing plan for Wings Over Wayne and ask for, basically they're going to be asking for an additional $10,000, which matches what we did last year, not last year, 2 years ago for Wings Over Wayne. But they would need that additional money. The city, as I said in my memo to you, has already approved it, subject to your approving 10,000, they'll approve 10,000. So that would be the marketing plan. I don't want to go into too many details because I would be stealing her thunder on that. So those are the presentations.
And then we got a joint meeting on March the 21st with the Board of Education. We'll recess to go there that day.
Yes, and
We'll
they'll,
finish lunch, I think.
just like last year, you recall, we had a very good meeting over there. They'll feed us lunch, and then they want to give you some updates on major initiatives they've been working on. One in particular is on the improvements they've made in technology during the year. You know, we gave them a significant amount of money to kind of jumpstart that. Plus, they got some additional money from the state, so they want to give you an update on that.
Okay. And then we'll have your comments, Mr. Wood, and then Board of Commissioners' comments and committee reports. And do we need a closed session?
We do.
We got time to do it this morning? All right, and for what reason?
It's,
It would be to discuss possibility of business and industry in Wayne County, the location of business and industry in Wayne County, and consult with attorneys to protect attorney-client privilege.
Is there a motion to go in closed session? So moved. All right, got a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Closed session.